Hey everyone, it's been Pixie here, and I wanted to talk about oaths and the Morrigan. I had something that I had written out at one point, but I cannot find it, and I think that is Goddess's way of telling me that she'd rather me basically relay my information in the words of somebody who's learned the lesson versus somebody who is seeking the knowledge. So thanks for that, Morrigan, because I really like to just read what I wrote because it was so much more eloquently put than I'm going to say it now. The long and the short of it is that one of the oaths I made, and it was one of the first and only oaths that I have ever made, like in life, is that I told my mom for as long as my grandparents were sick, since she had no other options and she had no other help, that I would be that help. That regardless of what it took, I would be there for her. I would help her in any way I possibly could. And I would write it out with her to the end. And sometimes it was hard because I was there more often than she could be. And that meant times when I would leave my grandparents' house and go home and decompress in really hard ways because it was hard watching, basically, my grandparents die. My grandma was like a yo-yo. She would basically be down to the point of where you could see the look of death on her face and then come back to being normal and back to her old self again. Like, she was like a yo-yo, really. Fast forward a few years, after my grandma had passed away, it was just my grandpa. And I was looking after my grandpa in the nursing facility that he was in because we just had not had a good experience with it. So, there would be times where he was very abusive. He used to run into me with his scooter. He tore my shoes all the time with his scooters, running over me. He would say very hurtful things. He's very verbally abusive. He didn't know any better a lot of the time. They had him over-drugged until we were able to fix that. And it was hard to remember that sometimes. So one day I was so pissed and just enraged that this guy that I was trying to help, my grandpa, this person who used to be so kind and gentle, was, because of all the medicine and the pain and the anxiety from not being able to move, all of these things has forced him to be this person that was a total jerk sometimes. And one day I left his house in the middle of the time that I was supposed to be there with him, and I said, I'm done. And I told Morrigan, I told her that I know I made this oath, but when is it ever okay to break an oath? Like, is it ever okay? Because I can't do this anymore. This is making me hate my grandfather. It's making me angry. It's making me feel all of these toxic feelings. When is it ever okay, if it's ever okay, to break an oath? And again, I really wish I had what I written down. But I asked her, as I was sitting in the backyard of my grandfather's facility, and then I took off walking. I just took off walking. And I think the original plan was to walk to a library nearby and just sit down and read books and go on the computer and forget about being at my grandpa's house for a while. So I went walking, and apparently as I'm walking, all these crows, every time I turned a corner, I would walk down the street, and a crow off to my left would start cawing, so I'd go left, and then again, wherever the crows were calling me to, I'd start walking. And wouldn't you know, instead of going to the library, I turned down the wrong damn street, and I basically ended up back on his street, just a little further down. So So I was aggravated at this point because I just wanted some distance and some peace. And I basically voiced my anger. And I sat down at a restaurant and with my thoughts and my question, and I wasn't going back until I got an answer. And the thing you have to understand, for those of you who don't follow the Morrigan, who don't work her path, is that vows and promises, oaths, things of that nature are very sacred to Morrigan, and you don't promise things to the Morrigan that you don't intend to keep, that you don't work your ass off to keep sometimes. It's a really sacred thing to swear an oath. So, I sat there with my thoughts and with my anger, and I started just writing my question out, and almost as soon as I wrote my question out, I got my answer. And again, I cannot put it as eloquently as I did when I wrote it down, because it was directly her words. But, an oath is broken when the desire has ceased, when there is an inability to continue to do whatever that oath entailed. It's already broken. There is no breaking an oath at that point. An oath it's already broken because your desire is gone. The will is gone to do whatever was entailed in that oath. And so I had to sit there and now I ask myself, is it really in me? Can I really just leave all of this on my mom's shoulders? Because yes, she had two sisters, has two sisters, but they really, compared to what my mom and I did, was minimal to no in the care for my grandparents. And I sat there with myself thinking, did I really have no desire to help anymore? Did I really have no desire to do what I said I would do? And I said, well, I don't think that's it. So obviously I can't break my oath, or that oath isn't broken yet. So then the other part of it I got is, when the oath leads to toxicity of the self, when you are engaging in behaviors that are toxic to you, your life, your magical practice, your path, all of those things, then when those things happen, you're being out of service to yourself, to your goddess. You're not doing the things that you need to get done, and then you can be released from that oath. Because that oath is becoming a detriment to you. So I thought that even though things between my grandpa and I are not always great, they are sure not toxic, and I've been in toxic situations. Then I thought about, okay, well, to a really old friend who is no longer my friend, I made an oath to make sure that she never killed herself or did anything like that, because she was very unstable that way. And toward the end of our friendship, she was doing more and more things that were toxic in nature to herself and causing me more toxic feelings toward myself and my life, bringing more chaos in a bad way to my life. And at that point, the desire was gone to care whether she lived or died. And my oath was broken then. And that situation is completely different than the situation with my grandfather. So if you just say, I'm not going to do it anymore, and you give up on stuff and you walk away without any thought, then yeah, you've broken an oath. And if your goddess is the Morrigan, you're pretty much screwed because you just chose apathy and the easy way out. But if you make an oath in the presence of your goddess, and it's one that you intend to keep, these are the only ways in which, at least in my experience, that an oath can be broken with honor. and without incurring any wrath from the Morrigan for dishonoring with apathy and without thought. Because when your will and your desire are gone, what more is there to give? There's nothing more of you to give. It's already been given. And when things are toxic and they're causing you distress or harm, and those things were either not there in the beginning or not there to the point where they were impacting you in the beginning, then you have every right to be released from that oath. In concern to my grandparents, to my grandmother and my grandfather, the oath came to completion when my grandfather passed away. I'm able to say that I was able to keep that oath because it meant a lot to me to be there for my mom and to be there for my grandfather. And I take my oaths very seriously. So, when considering an oath, you have to consider sacrifices. You have to consider that, especially if your oath is to people, that people change over time, that they become different people as the years go on, and an oath is for as long as you make it for. And if you don't feel like you can complete that oath, it's best probably not to make it. Or to do maybe a promise in a short term. I learned a lot about things through the oath that I kept. I learned a lot about my strengths, about my weaknesses, things that I am really founded in and grounded on, and things that I need to work on. I learned a lot about love. I learned a lot about respect. I learned a lot about what hatred was and what it wasn't. I learned a lot, and I wouldn't take a minute of it back. Even when I was decompressing and it was hard, and I couldn't understand why I put myself through it. So you guys asked me to share a little more of my personal practice. So there you go. I have been oath-bound now twice in my life to various people. The first one, to my former friend, I think that was more a personal oath because I really did care about her. She was a really, really good person when I met her. She had some things that I wasn't crazy about her personality, but I never thought that she'd become what she became. But to my grandparents, to my mom, that was definitely an oath that I made in the presence of my goddess because it was something that needed to be done and it was in me to do. I don't think I said about trying to gain anything from this oath, but I gained a lot. So if an oath is something that you are considering, really contemplate the worst that it could be within this oath and see if you still want to do it. Contemplate the most you're willing to take, and make sure that when you're making your oath, you're really clear about things. Be clear and have your boundaries set, especially if you're dealing with people. An oath to see something through, or a job, or something to that extent. A magical oath to your goddess. Definitely make sure that your time frame is set, your boundaries are set, make sure that you take care to really plan and think out your oath. Because if it's an elongated oath, I guarantee you there's going to be some bad days. So I thought I would just share this talk on oaths with everyone, and hopefully I've helped some of you guys out who might have been considering entering into something magical long term, or just in practice like a long-term oath. Hopefully this helped you out, and I will see you guys in the next one. So many blessings. Bye bye.